And good evening. Tonight, millions of Americans marveling over the magic of this year's solar eclipse. People from all walks of life taking in the unbelievable sight as the moon passes between the Earth and the sun, temporarily blocking the sun's light. From Eagle Pass, Texas, to Indianapolis, to Carbondale, Illinois, and all the way up to Maine, these were some spots in the 15 states that were able to experience totality. The celestial phenomenon viewable in forms across 40 states, the path of totality stretching 100 miles wide, extending across the continent. In Mexico, one of the first places in North America to see the moon completely cover the sun. Dallas, Texas was the largest city in the path of the eclipse. People there telling our Al Roker it was such an emotional moment to catch a glimpse for the first time. Temperatures dropping 4 degrees as the sun faded away. In Russellville, Arkansas, hundreds of couples gathered for a mass wedding at the total eclipse of the Heart Festival, saying "I do" moments before taking in totality. And check out this time lapse from Toledo. People there in awe as sky watchers plunged into complete darkness. Even among all the hustle and bustle of the Big Apple, New Yorkers stopped in their tracks to look up, amazed at the universe around them. In just minutes, top story goes where no show has gone before. We'll speak live to one of the galaxy's greatest thespians and space ambassadors, William Shatner. But right now, the moment bringing humanity together for one of the most anticipated events in so long. NBC's Lester Holt witnessed the magical moment from Indianapolis. He starts off our coverage tonight.
It didn't matter where you were. The reactions were the same.
The diamond ring!
Joy, awe, and wonder. A shared experience for millions of people today who had a front row seat to history on the horizon.
Just seeing how it got dark, that was an experience that, it's like unforgettable.
I'm glad to be a part of something like this.
People flocked to the path of totality, wider than it was in 2017, and stretching across 15 states from the Pacific to the Atlantic. Our correspondents were spread across it as the moon shadow moved from the southwest to the northeast. Morgan Chesky in his hometown of Kerrville, Texas.
And everyone is in awe right now of this 4 minutes and 24 seconds, which I have to tell you is feeling a little like an eternity right now. The buildup was so strong as we saw the moon slide in front of the sun that when it finally happened, you almost had to pinch yourself.
Soaking up the moment with his family.
Little 10-month-old Eleanor about to get her very first eclipse. I know it's a lot to take in, honey, but Olivia, oh, it's a lot. I know. I wouldn't be anywhere else other than with y'all right now.
There it goes.
In Dallas, Al Roker.
Yeah. Woo! Oh. Yeah. There are the beads. There are the beads. We saw, oh, look at this. Look at this.
And in Maine,
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Kate Snow, surrounded by thousands.
I've done this once before, and I got emotional then, and I feel myself getting emotional now. It's just something about it that is so incredibly special. I think it's maybe the commonality that we're all experiencing one thing at the same exact time.
For some, it was about checking something off that bucket list.
I'm from East Africa, and I couldn't believe what I just seen.
For others, it marked a new beginning. Hundreds of couples exchanged vows in Russellville, Arkansas, including Michelle and Randy Weller.
We will always remember our wedding day because of this day.
And despite concerns about the cloudy forecast, the views did not disappoint.
You can see the bottom corner coming out.
I think it's coming out right now.
There you go, right there on the right.
Yep, here it comes.
Pure magic, inviting all of us who paused for a few minutes today and simply looked up.
What was the emotion you guys experienced?
It was breathtaking.
We were at the Indianapolis Speedway with more than 50,000 other eclipse chasers.
It's just sliding away. You know, Tom, you and I cover a lot of difficult things to report sometimes, but this is magical.
And as the sky quickly darkened,
I think we're in totality.
We took off our glasses.
Like exciting, happy, like my heart beating is
am so happy you guys got to experience this. This is so neat.
A special and powerful moment that connected all of us.
My mom always promised me a trip to the moon, so this is as close as we get. 1969, watching the first moon landing together. She made it an event that we would never forget. And this is to her.
Well, she's with you today.
Thank you.
So much emotion on this day throughout the country. Lester Holt joins us live tonight from Indianapolis. Lester, you've seen a lot, you've covered a lot. Every assignment, for the most part, has something unique, something you won't forget. What stood out to you today?
You know, Tommy, I was thinking of how many weather stories I cover, and you know, when we tend to go on the road for weather stories, they tend to be calamities and disasters. And this was a natural event that the whole country could take part in to some extent. We talked about in that story the connections that were made of a shared moment. It was all true. I think a lot of us didn't know how we would react. I was more emotional than I thought I would be, but apparently I wasn't alone. It was really, really something.
It was definitely special. Lester Holt for us leading us off tonight here on Top Story. Lester, we thank you for that. For more on the eclipse, we have a special guest tonight. Star Trek star and actor William Shatner, the oldest living person to travel into space. He joins us in our Spotlight interview tonight. Mr. Shatner, thank you so much for joining Top Story. I want to start with your own eclipse viewing experience. You were in the path of totality in Bloomington, Indiana. What was that moment like for you?
Well, I was asked to speak, to entertain 15 minutes before the eclipse. So I wrote out something that I thought would amuse and amaze people, but I got the eclipse coming up. How can you overcome that? So I gave in to the awesomeness of it. You know, we've all seen pictures of the Webb telescope and the great views of the majesty of space and the incomprehensibility of the power that's going on out in the outer reaches. But it's distant. And all of a sudden, we see a miracle of two bodies lining up to make a picture for the third body. So an eclipse is such a refined maneuver. It doesn't have the power of explosions in space, but it still reminds you of these heavenly bodies moving in rhythm and in line with forces that we don't quite understand, retaining their orbit, retaining their ability to move, and all of a sudden, this coincidence, this instance of magic in which one body moves in front of the other, and it shades it so we can see this unique view of our star. And I looked at this ring of fire through the dark glasses, and again, I was amazed at how eternal and majestic the skies are. And here is one small example, but it's a reminder of the uniqueness that we live in. The weather cooperated. Here, it rained this morning. It's going to rain later in the day, but the skies opened up and it was bright blue until we had the eclipse. I was astounded. I was moved to tears. I was moved to understand that in some dim way, the universe moves in majestic orbits and ways that we don't understand. But this one, we did understand.
Mr. Shatner, explain that moment, though, why you were moved to tears. What do you think it was about seeing the moon cover the sun like that brought people to tears?
It was understanding that there are forces beyond anything we can understand. It was something so magical, so unique in that it rarely happens, and frequently when it happens, you're dependent on a clear sky. Even a small cloud can ruin the moment. So unless you have a clear sky and that moment in time, you've missed everything. Just the fact that we're looking at a celestial body going through its paces in front of us. We can read, we can look at pictures from the web, but it's like hearing about a car accident and being part of a car accident. The accident makes you understand that there's life and death, and these moments in space reminds you of how the word majestic comes to mind, how unfathomable the skies are. And here in this one instance, we could fathom what happened. The moon came in front of the sun and sent a shadow over a very limited number of places on Earth. And those of us who were lucky to see the totality of it, it's a lifetime experience.
Mr. Shatner, you had a chance to fly on Jeff Bezos' Blue Origin space shuttle back in October of 2021, and you wrote about it in your book, which was called Boldly Go: Reflections on a Life of Awe and Wonder. This is about the journey. I want to read to our viewers what you wrote. You put in the book here, I had the thought that going into space would be the ultimate catharsis of that connection I had been looking for between all living things. I had a different experience because I discovered that the beauty isn't out there. It's down here with all of us. Leaving that behind made my connection to our tiny planet even more profound. It's sort of interesting to hear your experience with the eclipse because it almost sounds like it was more profound than when you were actually in space, because you said being in space was incredibly lonely.
Well, seeing the eclipse gives you a nudge of how immovable, how majestic, how you can't ponder the mystery of the skies. But all of a sudden, you see a shadow in front of the sun. My trip into space reminded me of something that I've been doing for a long time, ecology, and I saw the vulnerability dramatically once again, but in such dramatic terms, the vulnerability of the Earth. And I was swept with the knowledge that extinction is happening in front of us all the time. Entities that took 3.8 billion years to evolve. It took to adjust and to the Earth and adjust to other things that were evolving. And they're disappearing without us knowing they even existed. The sadness I felt of the millions of things that are going extinct because of mankind just made me so sad that the passage of a complex thinking, feeling thing was gone and we never knew it existed. That to me carried such sadness, but I only realized that when I got off the ship. And once I realized it, I couldn't contain myself. I found myself crying uncontrollably. And every time I think about it, I well up because the Earth is so beautiful. The Earth has such grandeur about it. There's something so beautifully connected between man and the rest of nature. And most of us thwart it. We deny it. We say, that's ours. We can cut that tree down. We can kill that animal. We can spray a killing powder because something is eating our crops. There's so many ways around it. If we just thought in those terms about our ability to destroy the Earth and that we can't, not that we shouldn't, we can't. We can't go anywhere else. Talk about all you want about going to Mars and colonizing the moon. It's not going to happen to the degree it needs to happen. 8 billion people going someplace. We're here. We're stuck with here. We have to clean up our mess. That's plastics, and that's the air and the water.
William Shatner, maybe planet Earth's greatest space ambassador. We thank you so much for joining Top Story and sharing your experience of the eclipse.
Thank you. Well, thank you for giving me a chance to say that to people with feeling and meaning. We all owe a debt to this beautiful earth.
That is so true. William Shatner, we thank you again. And many who were in the eclipse path in totality down south are now in the crosshairs of, believe it or not, severe weather. Heading into tomorrow, large hail reaching 2 inches in diameter, threatening the Dallas, Texas area with tornadoes, damaging winds and flooding, also a concern in the region. Let's get right over to NBC News meteorologist Bill Cairns, who joins us now live in studio. So, Bill, quite the day, I'm sure, for you, but now there's even more work ahead.
Yeah, and all the severe weather and the bad, nasty stuff held off till after the eclipse. But as you mentioned, there's thousands of people trying to head out of Texas and other areas. And now we have a tornado watch that's up till 8 o'clock. Haven't had any tornadoes yet. We do have some very strong thunderstorms that are racing north. They've now reached Interstate 20. We have a severe thunderstorm warning right over the top of Tyler, Texas. About 60-mile-per-hour winds are possible and quarter-size hail. And as we go through the night tonight, that's going to be the story. We're going to get some really big, large hail-producing storms. And this will continue into tomorrow. Almost all of Texas, even into Louisiana, 3-inch hail. So we call it like giant hail. That's when you get up to baseball size. That's going to do significant damage. That's going to be possible. Watch out in the Dallas-Fort Worth area tomorrow morning about 9 a.m. And this is the area that has the chance for that big hail. And on top of this, it's going to be stormy in this region for 3 straight days. Flood watches are up. Some areas have a chance of getting up to 8 inches of rain. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, this mess will be all through the south. It makes its way to the East Coast, Tom, by the time we get to Thursday night.
All right, Bill Cairns first. Bill, we'll stay tracking that throughout the week. Now to our other major headline tonight. President Trump announcing his position on abortion, refusing to back a national 15-week ban and saying he favors allowing states to decide their own policies on the issue. Democrats and some Republicans now blasting the move, including his former vice president, Mike Pence. Garrett Haake is following the political fallout.
Tonight, after weeks of hints, former President Trump weighing in on abortion, declining to call for a national ban, instead saying it should be up to states to decide on any restrictions.
The states will determine by vote or legislation or perhaps both, and whatever they decide must be the law of the land, in this case, the law of the state. At the end of the day, this is all about the will of the people.
Also stating his own view.
I am strongly in favor of exceptions for rape, incest, and life of the mother.
Mr. Trump's announcement creating intense bipartisan backlash.
Donald Trump just endorsed every single state ban on reproductive care nationwide. If MAGA Republicans put a federal ban on his desk, he'd sign it. Donald Trump is the reason Roe's ended. If you reelect me, I'll be the reason why it's restored.
While Mr. Trump's former VP, Mike Pence, slamming him for not calling for a national ban, writing, quote, President Trump's retreat on the right to life is a slap in the face to the millions of pro-life Americans who voted for him in 2016 and 2020. The Supreme Court, with 3 Trump-appointed justices, struck down Roe v. Wade in 2022, returning the issue to the states, where some now have near-total abortion bans. Others have no restrictions.
I was proudly the person responsible for the ending of something that all legal scholars, both sides, wanted and, in fact, demanded be ended. Roe v. Wade.
But just 36% of Americans support the overturning of Roe, according to an NBC News poll, and the issue has energized Democrats. For Mr. Trump, today's announcement is the latest step in a long public evolution on abortion.
I'm very pro-choice.
I'm pro-life.
We will agree to a number of weeks, which will be where both sides will be happy.
Garrett Haake joins us tonight from Washington. Garrett, in many ways, the former president has sort of telegraphed this move. How is he responding tonight now that he's getting criticism on both sides?
Well, he's really lashing out, Tom, especially at his critics on the right, suggesting that Republican stridency on the issue of abortion has cost them elections. It's going after especially Lindsey Graham, who's been an ally of his on other issues, suggesting that Graham wouldn't have even been reelected without his support. Donald Trump knows he can't control this narrative in the broader public, or certainly can't totally stop the attacks he's going to get from the left. But on the right, he is very much throwing his weight around, trying to get the rest of the party to fall in line behind him on the idea that this abortion issue should be left in as much as possible to the states going forward.
All right. Garrett Haake for us tonight. Garrett, thank you. For more on Trump's abortion announcement and what it means for the 2024 race, I want to bring in our political pros tonight. Democratic strategist Amisha Cross and a good friend of Top Story, and Mark Lauder, former director of strategic communications on the Trump 2020 campaign, also a friend of the broadcast. We thank you both for joining us. Mark, let's pick up right where Garrett left off there. Will he throw his weight around, and will the Republican Party sort of line up behind him on this stance?
Well, eventually they have to. There's no choice, because at least in President Trump, you have someone who fights for life. On the other side, you have Joe Biden, who believes that taxpayers should be funding abortion in the 7th, 8th, 9th month of pregnancy, and that's just not palatable. So let's have this fight at the state level, which is where we were fighting for 50 years to do, and the president has set out the expectations of exceptions for rape, incest, life of mother, support for IVF, and then let's let the states handle this.
Mark, but do you think it's good politics? And look, it might be. Maybe it's a strategy to confuse everybody. But you really have no idea where the former president stands on abortion when you look at his history, when you look at where the Republican Party is, where you look at what he said when he was president, and then when you look at now what he just posted on Truth Social.
Well, he has come out and said, look, that he thinks that 15, 16 weeks is probably the right area to be. That's where the American people are. The polls show 71% of Americans think that 4 months is about the right time for a woman to be able to make that very difficult decision. He said that he thought 6 weeks was a little bit too restrictive. And so, he's said where he is in terms of broad policies, but what you can get done at a federal level, nothing. What you can get done at a state level is going to be up to the people's elected representatives, which is what the fight about Roe was all about in the first place.
Amisha, I know this is a personal issue for your family. How are Democrats looking at this announcement?
As one where former President Trump is talking out of both sides of his mouth. Quite frankly, Republicans know, and Donald Trump knows as well, that restrictive abortion policies do not win. We've seen this in Virginia. We've seen it now be a ballot initiative in Florida, and that's mobilized a lot of Democratic younger voters and women voters. We've seen it utilized in campaigns, even in the great state of Kentucky, where Andy Beshear ran ads about a young woman who was a victim of incest and sought an abortion. Time and time again, we've seen that at the polls, abortion rights is not a winner, or abortion restrictions are not a winner for Republicans. So Donald Trump is trying to basically ease his way into something that is very interesting to me, because he says that we shouldn't have, federal regulations here. However, on that same token, he's pushing this off to the states. But he made a federal regulation when he decided to choose Supreme Court justices who he knew would overturn Roe v. Wade. That was his federal stance. And he's someone who has gone across the country in previous years supporting the overturning of Roe v. Wade. He's someone who advances the restrictive policies that we've seen in state after state, and has applauded governors as well as state legislatures who have pushed for some of the most restrictive policies. 1 in 3 women in America lives in a state where there are severe abortion restrictions. That is a huge no-go for women, and we've seen it time and time again come up, and when it does, Republicans lose. So I think that Donald Trump right now is playing the semantics game, even though he's already showed his hand.
So, Mark, as you know, many conservative Republicans, even those you work closely with, like former Vice President Mike Pence, are upset with this announcement because they wanted to see Trump back a national ban. How worried are you that this could cost him some voters?
I don't think it'll cost him voters, because I don't think anyone who really values life can afford to sit home. The choice is not just about abortion. It's also about the economy. It's about a secured southern border. And it is about who's going to be out there fighting for pro-life. And so Donald Trump has shown that he is pro-life. He is the reason why we got justices who put this decision back in the hands of the lawmakers that were elected by the people. And so the choice is pretty clear. Whether you're going to have abortion funded by the taxpayers in the 7th, 8th, or 9th month, or if we're going to have some common sense finally injected into this discussion.
And then, Amisha, I want to ask you, President Biden consistently leads the former president in polling on the issue of abortion. But take a look at this. In a recent Wall Street Journal poll of 7 battleground states, Trump leads Biden on almost every other issue surveyed in several cases by 20 points. Abortion is clearly one of the only issues where Democrats are playing with the lead. But how can President Biden make an argument for a second term when he's so far behind in all these other different areas?
Well, I think we're seeing him do that right now. One of the advantages that Biden and the Democratic Party has is their overwhelming fundraising haul and individual donors, many of which who are donating monthly, not just big dollar donations. With that being said, he's already amplified across multiple states his ad buys. He is expanding offices. The state of Michigan has over 30 right now. We know he's expanding in Georgia. We know that he's expanding in places like North Carolina as well. And that's going to continue to happen. He needs to increase outreach to black voters voters, younger voters, ensuring that he is showcasing the policies where they're actually affecting people's lives. We know that more jobs have been added. He needs to take that show on the road. He's talking about infrastructure. We recently saw the disastrous issue with the bridge in Baltimore. There are several issues that are related to the American economy, the American, we're watching right now the information that came out today on student debt relief and some of the rest of the projects related to decreasing the amount of, or the overburden that many people feel in paying back their student loans. These things matter to the American public. Joe Biden is doing what he needs to do, is developing the messaging strategy and getting individuals shaped up for these battleground states so that people can understand where his policies actually meet them where they are. Abortion rights is a different type of conversation because there are literally women dying because of this, because of lack of abortion rights. There are women who their children are non-viable, women who had already bought the nursery, women who had already bought the baby clothes, women who've already hosted a lot of the events around welcoming their baby, and that child did not make it. Meanwhile, states across the country, we see Republicans pushing to absolutely not pay attention to doctors and what doctors are telling them to save the mother. We talk about the right to life. What about the right to life of that woman? The right for her to live and the right for her to continue to be able to maintain a level of procreation. Because in many cases, if she does not have those abortion rights upheld, she will not be able to have another child at all.
Amisha Cross, Mark Lauder, we're going to have to leave it there for tonight. I'm sure we're going to be talking about this through November and beyond. Still ahead tonight, the deadly shooting in Las Vegas, a gunman opening fire inside a law office. At least 2 people killed, the suspect also dead. The late-breaking details we've just learned, plus dramatic video showing the moment a man tackles someone trying to steal his truck, but seconds later, he's hit by the getaway car in his own driveway. What that man told Top Story about the decision to confront the thieves. Next tonight, to a wild video out of Washington State. It shows a man nearly run over in his own driveway by attempted thieves who appeared to be targeting his truck. NBC's Dana Griffin spoke to that truck owner, and she has that wild video tonight.
Just seconds after getting a notification in the middle of the night, Eric Smith captured on his own Ring camera tackling a suspected car prowler who had been sitting in the passenger side of his truck.
I put my hands on him, grabbed him. At that point, he started screaming, yelling for the driver of the vehicle to help him out. Help, help.
Then the driver of this getaway car backs up, angles toward them, and accelerates.
Felt kind of like a movie, you know. I just ended up on the hood, held on, turned around to see where I was going to impact. I saw I was going straight for my truck. Saw my truck door was open. Just happened to pick up my legs and kick my door closed.
After being hurled off the vehicle and slamming into his own truck, Smith stands up without a scratch to snap a photo before the suspect sped away.
I was a little shaky, so the photos came out a little blurry.
The incident happened last month outside his Pierce County, Washington home. His family now sharing it online to help authorities identify the suspects.
I give a lot of credit to social media.
The Pierce County Sheriff's Department tells NBC News those images led to a potential arrest in a different city, but they have yet to confirm if the suspect is tied to their investigation. The department writing in a statement in part, "We have seen a significant rise in motor vehicle thefts with juvenile suspects. This incident is particularly scary since it shows how bold these suspects are getting and at what costs they will take to get away." According to the department, motor vehicle thefts were up 27% in the county last year.
Just 30 minutes prior to, another person on social media reached out and provided footage of them hitting their vehicles.
Deputies say it's likely the suspects were casing nearby homes, but no other reports were filed with the department.
They got nothing out of it. I have nothing. I don't keep anything in my vehicle, but they were certainly lucky.
Lucky, Eric says, because everyone involved could have been hurt. Would you have done anything different?
Yeah, that's a good question. Absolutely not. There's so many different ways this could have gone, and I think I had probably the best outcome.
Dana Griffin joins us now live from Los Angeles. So, Dana, what more do we know about this potential suspect, and why haven't they confirmed if this is one of the suspects in that video?
Well, see, Tom, these car thefts and car prowl cases are often not the first crime these suspects have committed. So while someone has been arrested for a different crime in a different jurisdiction, Pierce County investigators are looking at this person as a potential connection. They tell me it could take months to confirm both suspects' identities. They are using several tools to make the connection, and they want to make sure they have an airtight case. Tom?
And Dana, before you go there, I know that phrase car prowling is being used more and more. Explain to our viewers what exactly is a car prowler? Is it essentially someone who's looking to steal a car?
Well, actually, they're looking to get inside your vehicle and steal the items inside. So they, according to the victim in this case, he says that they believe that getaway car was stolen and that these suspects were going checking random cars throughout the neighborhood, looking for ones that were unlocked because they were not trying to make a lot of noise, not trying to make a scene. So that's why they are being dubbed car prowlers for going in these trucks and trying to steal items and possibly steal the vehicles.
It's a big problem in so many states. All right, Dana, we appreciate you in that report. When we come back, we continue our coverage of the great North American eclipse. NBC's Gotti Schwartz with arguably the best seat in the house, watching the total solar eclipse from a jet about 20,000 feet in the air, what he saw when the moon and sun perfectly aligned. Stay with us. We are back now with a unique view of today's total solar eclipse. Across the country, millions of people witnessing the rare phenomenon from the ground. But our Gotti Schwartz soaring 20,000 feet to give us a glimpse of the eclipse in a jet.
How lucky are we to have a moon and sun so perfectly aligned that every so often their magical dance allows us to stare straight at the sun for a celestial show like no other.
It turned dark fast and then it turned morning fast.
From the youngest viewers to those waiting for this moment for decades, many were simply overcome by the beauty of today's total eclipse, while we set out for a different view.
We're going to be flying in formation for a little bit. The plan is that that jet is going to stay on the outside of the edge of totality.
A front row seat to history from above.
All right, so right now we are in full-on totality. Let me see if I can show you. Look! We are, what, about 20,000 feet? Right.
The view's breathtaking.
When you're up here and you see the movement of this shadow. Shadow is very dark on this side, very light on this side.
The team from V-Speed capturing a moon shadow passing over Arkansas.
Look at this. Wow. Now it's like this sunrise, but the sunrise is a color I've never seen before. It is like a deep purple. This is incredible. And what a happy coincidence.
A cosmic wink to all of us that we share this planet, united under our sun.
Super excited. I love hearing the joy behind me with when all of that went down.
It is, it's a life-changing experience. And Tom, what a cosmic experience. I gotta say, this is one of my favorite assignments of all time. The only way we're gonna top this is maybe going to the moon, going to Mars. I don't know, but the future is looking very, very bright. The sun is coming out. It's shining right now, so who knows? Tom, back to you.
I'd be happy just going to Cabo in that jet. All right, Gotti Schwartz, thanks so much for that. Now to Top Stories news feed, and we begin with the shooting at an office building in Las Vegas. Police say a gunman shot and killed two people at a law office before turning the gun on himself. Hundreds of people evacuated to the nearby Red Rock Casino. So far, no details on the identities of the victims or their relationship with the suspect. And the NCAA women's basketball final capping off a historic season with another record-setting night. According to ESPN, a whopping 18.7 million people tuned in to watch South Carolina beat Caitlin Clark and her Iowa Hawkeyes for the national title Sunday night. It is now the most watched women's college basketball game ever. ESPN says it's also the largest audience on the network for any basketball game, men's, women's, professional, or college, since 2019. That's pretty cool. All right, next tonight to the Americas and the escalating tension between Mexico and Ecuador. In a stunning move, police in Quito storming the Mexican embassy and arresting Ecuador's former vice president who was seeking asylum there. Now Mexico severing diplomatic ties with Ecuador, arguing the raid violated international law. NBC's Guad Venegas explains this all for us.
Mexico! Mexico!
Tonight, Mexico breaking diplomatic ties with Ecuador after an unprecedented use of force. Police in Ecuador's capital, Quito, raiding the Mexican embassy over the weekend and arresting former Ecuadorian Vice President Jorge Glass, who had been granted political asylum by Mexico. Video shared by Mexico's foreign minister shows the moment Roberto Canseco, a Mexican diplomat, tries to stop the caravan with the VP from driving away and is tackled by police outside the embassy.
¿Cómo delincuentes allanaron la embajada de México en Ecuador? Esto no es posible. No puede ser. Es una locura.
Mexican officials say the officers entered by force, jumping over the wall, forcing the gate, and hurting Mexican personnel.
México reitera su condena por la violación de la inmunidad de su embajada en Quito y la agresión a su personal.
Glass, who was moved to a high-security prison in Guayaquil on Sunday, arrived at the Quito embassy in December after he was indicted on corruption charges he claimed were politically motivated. Now some residents in Ecuador concerned this stunning arrest is yet another political play.
Pienso que fue una decisión muy política, justamente para, en consecuencia de que el apoyo del presidente está descendiendo.
Ecuador's foreign minister defending the move, saying that there was a risk of imminent escape and that Mexico violated the principle of non-interference in the internal affairs of other countries when they gave Glass asylum. Just 3 months ago, the president of Ecuador stressing the importance of the two nations working together to fight crime in the region to Telemundo's Julio Vaqueiro.
¿Cree que se puede trabajar en conjunto?
Debemos de trabajar juntos. Tenemos un problema similar y creo que podemos, juntando fuerzas, resolverlo de una mejor manera.
But now, that relationship seemingly shattered. The U.S. State Department condemning any violation of the Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations, writing on X, "We encourage our partners Mexico and Ecuador to resolve their differences in accord with international norms." On Sunday, Mexican diplomats returning back home to an outpour of support, as Mexican officials say their embassy in Ecuador will remain closed indefinitely.
All right, Guad joins us tonight from our studios in Miami. Guad, this is such a strange story. Do we know if there'll be repercussions from Mexico? Because it seems clear from your reporting, Ecuador violated international norms that treat embassies as sovereign pieces of property.
That's correct, Tom. So what we know this morning, the Mexican chancellor announced that 29 nations around the world have spoken in favor of Mexico and condemning what happened at the Mexican embassy, including some countries from the European Union. She specifically said that the leaders of Brazil, Chile, Colombia, and Bolivia have declared themselves personally in favor of Mexico. And this is going to be key. She announced that the community of Latin American and Caribbean states have called for a meeting for all of the chancellors of the members of that bloc to meet tomorrow. Both Mexico and Ecuador are members of that bloc. So tomorrow's meeting will be specifically to discuss what happened at the embassy, Tom.
Guad, you know, our viewers at home may be thinking about Ecuador, and we had that major story that you were covering for us as well, where an entire newscast was taken hostage live on the air. What exactly is the state of play in Ecuador right now?
Right. So there was a lot of violence that escalated last year because of what was happening inside of the prisons and a lot of the criminals or the organized crime groups in Ecuador that had gained a lot of power. So what happened is the new president came in, and that president cracked down on a lot of the prisons because a lot of these criminals were organizing what was happening outside from inside of the prisons. So we know that the president has taken executive actions to crack down on organized crime. That has been happening. And also, part of his administration's work has been to crack down on politicians that they have found to be guilty of specific charges. So the vice president was someone that was indicted when the new president came into power. And at some point, that vice president went to the Mexican embassy, asked for political asylum, and had remained inside of the embassy. But the government of Ecuador said that they had a right to go in there because they felt like the Mexican government had violated some type of law by interfering with with what was happening in Ecuador. So it's a very complicated situation. Now, the Mexican government, Tom, has said that they will take this to the International Court and to the United Nations so that they can take the next step as we all figure out what happens next, Tom.
Yeah, clearly it's not the last we've heard about this incident. Okay, Gwad, we thank you for that. Coming up, running across Africa, a British man running across 16 countries, 10,000 miles in under a year. Our partners at Sky News right alongside him as he finally crossed the finish line. Again, he ran across the continent. The first thing he said after completing his goal. That's next. Now to Top Stories Global Watch and a check of what else is happening around the world. We start in Russia, where there's been a flooding emergency in the Ural Mountains near the border with Kazakhstan. New video, take a look, shows rescuers pulling people through the windows of their flooded homes after one of Europe's longest rivers swelled several feet, causing a dam to burst. Authorities saying that more than 10,000 homes are flooded right now. Mass evacuations are underway, with rivers expected to rise even more in the coming days. So far, though, no word on any injuries. Brazil's Supreme Court opening an investigation into Elon Musk over possible obstruction of justice. The tech magnate in hot water for saying he would defy the court's orders to ban some popular accounts on X. The judge accusing Musk of launching a disinformation campaign against the court. Musk will also be fined $20,000 every day for each banned account reinstated. Musk responded, calling for the judge's resignation. And the eclipse, not the only spectacular phenomenon we're talking about tonight. Take a look at this. Smoke rings emitting from Mount Etna in Italy. That is very cool. The largest active volcano in Europe. The near perfect circles, known as volcanic vortex rings, drifting across the Sicilian sky. Onlookers admiring the rare sight, which experts say are formed through the rapid release of gas and vapors from a new crater. Wow. Okay. We want to turn now to a story of an incredible feat. A British man running the length of Africa, covering almost 10,000 miles in less than a year. Some of his supporters joining him for parts of his journey, but he also faced several challenges as well. Our Matt Bradley has a look at the moment he crossed that finish line.
Breathless but triumphant, 27-year-old Russ Cook completing a monumental challenge, running the length of Africa.
Pretty good, I'm a bit tired.
That's almost 10,000 miles, or roughly the equivalent of 376 marathons over 352 days.
I'm just trying to make sure we're going the right way. The realization that my wife got pregnant, had a baby, we now have a 2-month-old in the time he's done this.
The UK native crossing the finish line at the northern tip of the continent in Ras Angela, Tunisia on Sunday. After a grueling and at times perilous journey across 16 countries, starting at the southernmost point in Cape Agulhas, South Africa, last April.
Day 337.
Cook documenting his journey on social media as he tackled different climates and terrains. But he also had to deal with unpredictable and dangerous scenarios. He says in Angola he was robbed at gunpoint of his passport and phones, and that in Congo he escaped locals armed with machetes by paying them off.
The scariest moment was in the Congo when I was on the back of a motorbike thinking I was about to die. Getting driven into the jungle. That was pretty nuts.
That terrifying ordeal even making him consider quitting.
Probably for about 1 minute, thought about quitting, and then I realised I couldn't. So that's about as close as I ever got.
And if all that wasn't challenging enough, he was initially denied a visa crossing into Algeria from Mauritania when he turned to social media for help.
I've been following him since he first started, from the very beginning.
His supporters finishing with him on the last leg, in awe of the man who also ran from Asia to London 3 years ago.
I saw the post on Instagram where he invited everyone out. I was laying on my couch. 20 minutes later, I bought the ticket, and here I am. I just couldn't miss a crazy historic opportunity like this.
His run, dubbed as Project Africa, raising almost $900,000 and will go towards 2 charities.
I'm a big believer in sport doing wonders for people's lives, and it changed my life.
Though Russ has more in store, for now, he's just looking to unwind.
I've got a whole list of ideas. But I'm keen to chill out for a moment. Like, spend some time with the family and stuff, you know.
Matt Bradley, NBC News.
We thank you for watching Top Story. I'm Tom Llamas in New York. Stay right there. More news on the way.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.